Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. I hope your day and your week are going very well so far. College football week 7 is officially here. I have a ton of great picks to go ahead and share with you guys. But first, as always, people, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. It helps the channel grow, and it really does mean a ton to us. We have a ton of great content here on the channel, and the best part of it all is, guys, that here on the Guy Boston Sports YouTube channel, all of the content, all of the picks that we hand out are 100% free. Don't miss out, guys. If you haven't already, please consider hitting that subscribe button down below. With a new week of college football comes a new opportunity to go ahead and make some money. I have a whopping 14 picks. That's right, 14 picks to go ahead and share with you guys in this week's college football slate. But real quick, guys, before we dive into this week's slate, we do have to do a quick little recap of how we did last week. And in order to do that, guys, I got to bring out a little prop I just got here. And it doesn't bring me pride to wear this, but this is the plunger of shame. It will stay on my head here, my fat head. We sucked ass last week. There's no ways around it. No ifs, ands, or buts. A 4-10 performance. Now, to be fair, not to defend... Yeah, get rid of this thing. Not to defend myself, but I think a lot of people had a bad week last week. We had a lot of upsets, a lot of weird games, a lot of weird results. It is what it is. It sucks. In front of 11,000 people who watched last week, I basically shit my pants. To those people who rode last week and lost money using my picks, I do apologize to you guys. I will make it up to you this week, I promise. That's sports gambling, guys. Some weeks you go 4-10, and who knows, maybe this week you go 10-4. That's just the way this thing works. I'm not happy about it. I know a lot of you, I'm reading the comments, I know a lot of you aren't happy about it. It sucks, but guys, the best part about life and the way I look at life is that if you are fortunate enough, you get an opportunity to wake up the next day and try again. And fortunately enough, I'm here, another week. Let's go ahead and turn this ship around. The night is darkest before the dawn, and I feel like some good times are coming, guys. So let's not waste any more time. Let's dive into this week's picks. All right, guys, we're jumping right into the outlier screen, guys. By the way, quick little heads up, guys. If I sound different or if my energy's a little bit off, I am sick. I've been sick for the past couple of days, but rain or shine, sick or not, the show must go on. So I do apologize. I'm sure this is obviously my college football videos with 14 picks are longer. By the end of the video, I'm probably going to sound like Doc Rivers in the end. So I apologize for that. I also apologize if I have to suddenly cough in the middle of a rant or a conversation. Again, sometimes I just can't control it. So bear with me here. We got a sick week, but I think we're going to have a good week. All right, guys, our first of 14 picks in this Week 7 college football slate. We're targeting the Utah-Arizona State game, 10:30 p.m. kickoff on Friday. And I'm going with the Utes here, the Utah Utes minus 5.5 here. Again, you get it for varying odds on multiple sportsbooks. As always, guys, shop around for the best sportsbook odds available. The line movement on this game has been absolutely crazy. Basically, the entire outcome of this game has been reliant on if Cam Rising is going to play. And just a couple hours ago, it was reported Cam Rising is expected to play in this game, which obviously shifts the odds in Utah's favor. Now, if you were fortunate enough and you're willing to take that gamble a couple days ago, this line you could have gotten at like 2.5 or 3. The line has quickly jumped up now, and I think it's only going to keep rising, no pun intended, as the hours continue into tomorrow. Cam Rising, he's that special of a quarterback. When he's on the field for Utah, he changes this team. They are a college football playoff team with him, and without him, not so much. And look, Arizona State, they're definitely much improved compared to where they were a year ago. And actually looking at the head-to-head matchup, when they played last season, Utah crushed them 55-3. Again, Arizona State, a much different team than they were a year ago, a much better team than they were a year ago. That being said, although they are better, I don't know how much better this team really, really is. I mean, you look at their wins. They've beaten Wyoming, Mississippi State, Texas State. I mean, their biggest win so far seems to be that Kansas win, which was their last week's game. I'm just not sold. And again, Utah, they are a really solid team, top 20 team in the nation, especially with Cam Rising here. I just think the mix of Cam Rising and this Utah offense with Utah's defense against this Arizona State team, it's too much to overcome. This game should be a touchdown plus win for Utah. So getting them minus 5.5, still pretty decent value. They're also coming off a bye week, so an extra week to go ahead and prepare for this game. This should be an easy win for Utah. Again, I know there's no necessarily such thing as an easy win in sports, but as far as it goes, this should be an easy one. All right, guys, moving on into the Saturday slate now. Our first game on Saturday, 12 p.m. kickoff, Clemson, Wake Forest. I'm going with Clemson here, minus 19.5 against Wake Forest. Look, I'm just going to keep riding the hot hand here with Clemson. Obviously, we bet against them last week, Florida State. We came kind of close there, but Clemson still manages to cover that 14.5 spread versus the Seminoles. And this Clemson team has just been balling. Honestly, since that loss in week 1 to Georgia, they've been on a little bit of a roll here. Clemson has won 5 straight games, and actually it looks like apparently you could have gotten at 16. We had Florida State at plus 14.5 last week. Apparently this is saying the spread was 16.5. I wish we got at 16.5. Would have been a lot happier with that line, but they did not cover that minus 16.5. But again, assuming that the line I got it at was 14.5, they've now covered the spread in 5 straight games. They've won 5 straight games. Clemson has been on an absolute roll, and look at the insights provided by Outlier. The Clemson Tigers are now 6-2, a 75% hit rate against the spread in their last 8 games as a favorite. I just don't think Wake Forest is ready for the matchup versus this Clemson offense. This is a top 20 scoring offense in college football. Wake Forest scoring defense 106th in the nation. Not very good. This team struggles. They're outside the top 100 in passing yards allowed. Clemson obviously 34th, in the nation in passing yards for. This is a top 50 rushing team against a team that's ranked 99th against the run. There's really just no area where Wake Forest has an advantage defensively. I think Clemson should be able to score all over this Wake Forest team. Now, the only thing you could look at for Wake Forest's defense is their offense, right? Top 60 scoring offense in the nation. Clemson scoring defense, tied for 64th. Wake Forest, a top 30 passing attack in the nation against the Clemson passing defense, has been kind of shaky. That's the one area where I have a little concern here, but overall, I think Clemson's going to go ahead and roll this game. They should win this game by at least 3 touchdowns or more. We're going to get minus 19.5 here. Pretty decent value, too. I also just don't want to fade Cade Klubnik right now. The dude's been balling for the Tigers. I like Clemson a lot here. Next game we're taking a look at, guys, is the South Carolina-Alabama game, 12 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. We're going to South Carolina. We're going with the Gamecocks here, plus 21.5 against the Crimson Tide. Alabama obviously coming off of their really embarrassing loss against Vanderbilt last week. I'm just saying, if Nick Saban was the head coach, that probably would never have happened. If there's one thing Nick Saban never does, it's lose to Vandy. Listen, tough spot there. Obviously a big letdown spot for Alabama coming off that big Georgia win. But again, this Bama team's had issues. Even in that win against Georgia, they blew a massive lead and nearly let Georgia, in a game where Georgia definitely should never have been in, they nearly let Georgia come back and win that game. So Alabama, look, they're still a good team. I don't think losing to Vanderbilt erases everything they've done so far this year, but this team definitely has flaws. And I don't know if them covering a spread of more than 3 touchdowns against the South Carolina team is a good spot. South Carolina is quietly having a very, very good season. You've had a couple of big wins there. Obviously, that Kentucky win back in early September, obviously a big one. They gave LSU a pretty good shot there. LSU did come away with the win, but South Carolina gave them a really good challenge. Last week versus Ole Miss was the first time this year that South Carolina has been blown out. You see the previous 4 games, they've at least kept it respectable. And I know the insights provided by Outlier below, they do say that Alabama are 11-5 against the spread in their last 16 games. I just don't like that point total. I know a lot of people, and the public's obviously going to be all over Alabama here to go ahead and bounce back with this game. Coming off that embarrassing loss to Vanderbilt, you got to assume. Listen, I had the same thought process last week with Georgia, right? When I said, Georgia, they're going to come back, they're going to get the big win. And look, they didn't cover the spread last week. So this is the kind of things that happen. I think the public obviously gets really worked up in the idea that, they're going to come in and get the big win. I just don't think the matchup is the right one for them to do that. I think South Carolina is a tough play. I know they got blown up by Ole Miss last week, but I think South Carolina should at least keep this game within 4 scores. I just don't see Alabama winning this game by more than 3 touchdowns. I think Alabama wins. With 100% they win this game, but 21.5 points, I got to go ahead and take the Gamecocks here at plus 21.5. Also, defensively, Alabama's really struggled with these running quarterbacks like South Carolina has, so that's another element to go ahead and throw there. Like I said, I just like the spot here for the Gamecocks. And speaking of oh my God, guys, sorry about that. Was ready to sneeze. I didn't want to sneeze while I was talking, so I had to kind of lose my train of thought there. But speaking about matches where you have a team bouncing back in a big way, and now I know I just said I don't always like that spot of a team, the public being all over a team bouncing back, but this is a spot where I do like it, actually. I like the trend. We have Missouri, UMass, 12 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. I'm going with the Missouri Tigers here, minus 27.5. Now, the key difference here, though, guys, with this matchup is the fact that Missouri is playing up against UMass. It's not South Carolina. If Missouri was a 27.5 point favorite, I don't think that it ever would be. But if they were a 27.5 point favorite against South Carolina coming off a loss, I would absolutely fade them. But this isn't South Carolina we're talking about here. This is the UMass. I think it's the Minutemen is their mascot. I don't even, for a team that's like an hour and a half away from me. Probably should know that. Look, Missouri, obviously, they got spanked last week. I thought we had something with a signal. We had Missouri money line. We got embarrassed on that one last week. And Missouri, look, they are 4-1 now after that loss. But even going up to that, they had a couple of early blowout wins, but their previous 2, they barely beat Vanderbilt. They barely beat Boston College. And then obviously they get blown out by Texas A&M at Texas A&M. It's a very clear revenge spot. It's a very clear bounce back spot for this Missouri team. You're going up against a UMass defense that's outside the top 100. They actually are a pretty decent passing defense, believe it or not. But again, let's talk about the competition there for a second. But overall, this is not a very good defensive team for UMass, and even offensively outside the top 100 in scoring. So this is one of the worst teams in college football. The Missouri Tigers, like Alabama was, 11-5 against the spread in the last 16 games. So very similar stats and stuff to Alabama. Again, the big key difference here is that Alabama is going up against South Carolina team, an SEC team that has played tough this season. This is a UMass team that's kind of been hot garbage like they typically are. I mean, if you don't believe me, just look at the common opponent. So UMass and Missouri have both played Buffalo this year. UMass lost to Buffalo 34-3, and Missouri beat Buffalo 38-0. So that's the common opponent that these two teams have. Missouri beat them 38-0, and UMass lost to them 34-3. That should really tell you all you need to know about this matchup here. This is not a good UMass team. Missouri, obviously, they're embarrassed. They're going to look to go ahead and get things back on track. They need some style points here. They're going to go ahead and take some aggression out on this UMass team. I expect a massive blowout. Missouri should be able to take care of business here. 27.5 point spread. I think it's very gettable for the Missouri Tigers. Real quick, guys, before we carry on with the rest of this week's college football picks, a quick word from our partners over at DraftKings. That's right, guys. Guy Boston Sports and DraftKings Sportsbooks are partnering up to bring you guys this very special offer. And it's very easy and very simple. All you have to do as a new customer is use the link down below in the description, and you, as a new customer, bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Let me say that one more time. If you are a new customer and you use the link down below in our description, you go ahead and bet $5 on DraftKings, DraftKings will give you $200 instantly in bonus bets. We are talking free money here, guys, to go ahead and make more wagers. And obviously, guys, with football season in full swing, the NBA upon us, we're in the middle of the playoffs for both the WNBA and the MLB. Hockey's back. You name it, you got it. A ton of sports going on right now. Those bonus bets are going to come in handy. And it's simple. All you got to do is just bet $5. That's it, and you get $200 in free bonus bets guaranteed. So if you are not using DraftKings already, go ahead and check out the link down below in the description. Bet $5 as a new customer, get $200 instantly in bonus bets. It's that simple, guys. A special thank you to DraftKings for partnering with us for today's video. Now, let's get back to the picks. All right, next up, guys, moving on to the 3:30 p.m. window on Saturday. We're looking at Penn State, USC, one of the better games from this week's slate. I got to go with Penn State here, -3. A little bit of an alternate line here. It's -136 on DraftKings, -148 on Bet365. The actual line itself is at -4. I'm buying a point down just to play a little bit safer here. I think Penn State is clearly the better team, although on the road at USC, we'll see how that works, being on the road in a different time zone, a time zone that Penn State's not necessarily familiar with. These are some of the challenges with the conference realignment, right? A team like USC, Penn State wouldn't travel that far normally, and now they're traveling all the way to California. It may not sound like a big deal to most, but in a matchup like this, a team unfamiliar with traveling, we'll see how that goes. But I do like Penn State here at -3. Penn State, they've had a little bit of a cupcake schedule to start the year for sure. Looking at who their best win is so far this year, I don't really know. West Virginia week 1, maybe. Maybe you consider it UCLA. I mean, Illinois probably, actually. Illinois 21-7. Probably their best win of the season so far. The moral of the story, this team is not super battle-tested, which, again, I'm just giving you reasons why I'm a little concerned and why I'm taking them -3 instead of the -4 or anything higher. I think -3 is the safer play here. I do think Penn State should win. I think overall they are the better team. Their defense is just way too much. I think USC's offense is going to have a lot of problems. It's a top 10 defense in college football in a lot of key areas. Top 5 run defense, top 11 pass defense, top 10 scoring defense in general. And again, you can call into question those numbers based off who they've played. I just don't, but I do think this defense is legit. I just don't think that USC is going to be able to go ahead and score a ton of points on them. And then on the flip side here, Penn State, their offense has not been super impressive, but their strength goes against USC's weakness, right? This is a top 20 rushing team in the nation, and USC 88th in the college football right now in rushing, 158.6 rushing yards allowed per game. You see right there, it's a big advantage right there for Penn State. Also, yards per play, 7.1 yards per play, tied for 12th in the nation. USC 83rd, tied for 83rd in yards per play allowed, 5.5. Also, this is not a USC team that rushes the quarterback all that well. So Drew Lohr should have some time to sit in the pocket. Again, There's been a lot of questions about, can Drew Lock move the ball downfield? Can this Penn State offense move the ball through the air? They're ranked 56th right now in the nation in passing yards per game at 244. Not very good. But I do think overall this defense mixed with the running game, mixed with all the other elements here, Penn State should be able to win this game. And honestly, probably win it handedly. I think a touchdown win is probably not too unrealistic to ask for. But we're playing Penn State here -3 just to play a little bit safer here with this road game. But I like Penn State a lot here in this matchup. And one more thing, again, I know, again, the competition thing, it's going to keep being brought up. But Penn State has covered this -3 spread in all 5 games this year. They've won every game by at least 3 points or more. Obviously, USC is the toughest game they played so far this year. But the Penn State Nittany Lions are 10-5 against the spread in their last 15 games as a favorite. Brought to you by Outlier. All right, guys, next up we have Texas, Oklahoma, 3:30 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. I actually have 2 picks coming at your way from this game. Our first of 2 picks from this game, I have Texas Longhorns on the spread, -13.5. Quinn Ewers is officially back after a few games away with an injury. He should be back in this matchup on the road against the Sooners. And honestly, I like Texas a lot in this spot. Oklahoma I don't think is a bad team by any means. I just don't know if they're really ready for a matchup quite like this. Or should I say to win or keep a game like this close. Now, in terms of who they play, the toughest game Oklahoma's played so far this year, obviously they have that Tennessee game. They've actually had a pretty decent schedule. They played Houston, Tennessee, Auburn. Not the toughest schedule I would ever say. And actually, in terms of strength of schedule, Texas has had a tougher schedule than Oklahoma. But Oklahoma, they've had a couple of tests. That Tennessee game obviously being the one big test they've had, and they lost that game by 10. That game was also at home, by the way. I don't know how much the home field advantage is going to go ahead and play here for Oklahoma. I just think Texas is far and away the better team. And I think the biggest knock against them right now is the fact that Quinn Ewers might be rusty coming off injury, which is a fair point. But this Oklahoma team is banged up on both sides of the football. They have a lot of injuries. I just don't know if Oklahoma can overcome those injuries when matched up with this Texas team that is absolutely loaded. This game could get ugly. Texas could win this game by 3 touchdowns or more. That's how confident I am in this Texas team. They are really, really special. And although Quinn Ewers coming back could mean some rust, could mean some discomfort, maybe he's not 100%, I view it as they have their starting quarterback back. They're coming off a bye week, so they have some extra time to prepare for this game. I just think the Longhorns roll here. They're clearly the better team. There's a top 10 scoring offense in college football. They're the best team in college football right now. They're number 1 in the country for a reason. I mean, there's a top 5 defense in terms of scoring, top 10 offense in terms of scoring. I can sit here all day long and talk to you guys about the metrics and all the stats and everything why Texas is the better team, but I'm sick. I don't feel great, so I'm not going to go into all of that. You guys already know it. You can go ahead and look for yourself if you go ahead and look at the screen here. I mean, there's so many great metrics for Texas here. If your biggest thing is that Quinn Ewers isn't 100% healthy or he's rusty, if that's your biggest knock on Texas, come on, guys. Longhorns are the better team here. They're the better play. I don't care. They're on the road. This is the best team in the country right now. This is the best team in college football right now, and this Oklahoma team cannot hang with them. We're taking them at -13.5 here. Let's go Longhorns. And rolling with horns up here, guys, and I'm not a Texas football fan. I'm a Notre Dame football fan. I've been very transparent about that. Rolling with the Longhorns here, I'm also going to piggyback off of that with their team total over 31.5 points, which is available for -114 on FanDuel, -115 on DraftKings. They've cashed this over in 4 out of 5 games so far this year. The one game this year where Texas did not cash the over was Week 2 versus Michigan. We're talking about one of the better teams in the country. They beat Michigan 31-12 in a game that was pretty much over very early in the game. You had the feeling Texas could probably pour on a little bit more, but they kind of pulled their foot off the brake a little bit in the second half of that game. Texas obviously dominated that game for the entirety of it. But that's the one time this year they failed to reach the over here, was against Michigan. And they missed it by 1 point. Every other game this year, they've cashed the over with flying colors. I know Oklahoma, the numbers are pretty good defensively for them, but this is a Texas team averaging 45 points per game, the 7th highest scoring team per game in the nation. The toughest offense that Oklahoma has faced so far was that Tennessee game. They did give up 25 points in that matchup, but I think we can all agree Texas and Tennessee, the difference between them in offense, I do think Texas is slightly the better offensive team. Obviously, Tennessee, a very good offensive team in their own right. But again, Texas is better. I like the over here, 31.5 team total. I think Texas rolls here. By the way, guys, speaking of my Fighting Irish, the very next pick I have in today's slate, we're moving on to the Notre Dame-Stanford game, 3:30 p.m. kickoff. I'm going with the Fighting Irish here, -23.5 against the Stanford Cardinals. Notre Dame is now 6-2 in their last 8 games against the spread with a 75% hit rate. So far this year, Notre Dame is 3-2 against the spread. Not too bad, not too shabby. I mean, that is opposed to Stanford, who's 2-3 against the spread, so they're not really doing all that great. And they've been blown out quite a few times this year. Notre Dame is coming off the bye week, an extra week of rest, an extra week to go ahead and prepare for this game, coming off a big win against Louisville. They can go ahead and take advantage of the extra rest here. Look, I just don't see how Stanford keeps this game anywhere close. I think 23.5 is a pretty nice spread there. I know Notre Dame covering, and again, you see it right here on the screen. They've only covered this line in 2 out of 5 games this year. Now, to be fair, not very often a team will cover a spread of 24 points or more. But they have had a couple big wins. They beat Miami, Ohio by 25. They beat Purdue, obviously, that big game, 66-7. Look, for a team that has no conference championship, they obviously had that really disappointing loss to Miami, Ohio. Not Miami, Ohio, Northern Illinois earlier in the year. They need the style points. They can go ahead and get a big win here and pour it on against Stanford. Will definitely help build their resume a little bit for the college football playoffs. I just don't see where Stanford gets the job done here. This is a offense ranking outside the top 100 in scoring against a top 10 defense in Notre Dame. On the flip side, Notre Dame's offense not that impressive, tied for 45th in scoring in the nation, but this is not a very good Stanford defense, tied for 89th in scoring, give 27.2 points per game. I just don't see where Stanford keeps the game close. Notre Dame should absolutely go ahead and roll here. And by the way, the last time these two teams played last year, Notre Dame won 56-23. They kicked their ass. Expect something pretty similar again this year's matchup. All right, guys, next up, moving on to the night slate on Saturday. We're looking at Florida, Tennessee, 7 p.m. kickoff. Speaking of Tennessee, we're going with the over here, 56.5 in this Florida-Tennessee matchup. Again, we talked about Tennessee's offense earlier on. They are still top 5 in the nation, scoring 46 points per game, even though a very, very, very disappointing game last week against Arkansas, scoring just 14 points in that game versus Arkansas. But these are two teams that typically hit the over at a pretty high rate. You see Tennessee, their first 3 games, they nearly cashed the over by themselves. Literally in that game versus Penn State, they cashed the over by themselves. This team that, 2 times this year we've seen they cash the over just with their own points, never mind the other team's points. They're 3-2 against this over so far this year, 60% hit rate. Now, Florida, it's actually not hitting this over as high as you'd think. We obviously were right on that over last week versus UCF. It did not hit, but this is a Florida team that defensively not very good, and offensively they actually can score some points. Graham Mertz been playing very well lately for Florida. The insights provided by Outlier. The over is now hitting 10 of the Florida games last 13 games. So again, this is a Florida team that, typically speaking, the overs hit a lot of the time. This is a high-flying Tennessee offense that should be able to score at least. You got to imagine Tennessee should be able to score about 30 to 35 points on their own, maybe even more than that, probably closer to 40, honestly. Look at a comment. Mississippi State, that game, 45-28. They scored 28 points on Florida. Texas A&M scored 33 points on Florida. Miami, 41 points against Florida. So if those schools are putting up those numbers, I expect, and I know Florida's defense has been playing better of late, I do think that Tennessee should be able to score in the ballpark of 35 to 40 points. And then at that point, you just need Florida to do a little bit offensively. And although this Tennessee defense is very good, I do think Florida should be able to get at least a touchdown or 2 to go ahead and help add to that total. Tennessee will do most of the heavy lifting here, but Florida should be able to contribute just enough to go ahead and give this that cash. So over 56.5, I think is the right play here. All right, guys, next up is my favorite pick of this week's slate. So much that we're going to go ahead and do a little giveaway contest in this video. We did do a giveaway in last week's video for that Oregon team total. Again, we didn't have a lot of hits last week, but one of the hits, my favorite pick of last week, was that Oregon Ducks team total under, which did cash, so we did have a winner. Shout out to Patty Scherer 6012. I don't know if I said that correctly. Patty Scherer or Patisse Scherer 6012. You did win the Amazon gift card giveaway for last week. And so, again, I'm feeling really confident here. Let's do another giveaway for this pick. I have Ole Miss here -3. If Ole Miss hits, comment Rebels. All right, let's start off with that. Again, sick brain, guys. Apologies for that. Comment Rebels down below. And if Ole Miss covers the spread of -3, now that's not a push, a cover. They have to win by more than 3. If they cover the spread of -3, I will pick one lucky commenter who comments Rebels down below to win a free $15 Amazon gift card. That's simple, guys. Comment Rebels, and if they cover the spread of -3, one lucky commenter will be selected to win a free $15 Amazon gift card. We had a winner last week. Let's see if we can go ahead and get another winner this week. I just love Ole Miss in this spot. We were on Ole Miss last week versus South Carolina. We're on them here again. I just do not trust this LSU team. I know they're home here in Death Valley. Tough place to play. I just do not trust LSU in this spot. Call it a Brian Kelly bias, call it whatever you want to call it. I think Ole Miss is clearly the better team, and they should absolutely go ahead and roll here. To be fair, LSU's defense is better than it was a year ago. It's not as bad as it was during the Jaden Daniels year. Actually, if Jaden Daniels had this year's LSU's defense, they'd probably be in a much better spot. That being said, though, it's still not a good defense. It's better, but not good. Ole Miss's offense, on the other hand here, top 10 scoring offense in the nation, 44 points per game. The second best passing offense in college football with a potential Heisman winner on their team in Jackson Dart. Going against a LSU defense that's 93rd in passing yards allowed, giving up 236.4 yards per game. It's a really phenomenal matchup for this Ole Miss passing attack here. I expect them to absolutely go ahead and take advantage of this. I think Ole Miss is going to score a shit ton of points here, and I know the spread's -3. I think Ole Miss should win this game realistically by 10 points or more. And actually, guys, piggybacking off of that pick, I actually have 2 picks coming from this Ole Miss LSU game. I have the Ole Miss team total over 32.5 points. It's for -130 on DraftKings here. They've actually cashed this in 4 out of 6 games so far this year. Now, they haven't cashed this in each of the last 2 games. Obviously, that embarrassing upset loss to Kentucky, they only scored 17 points. And even though they had a really good win last week versus South Carolina, only 27 points in that win. So they failed to cash the over in each of the last 2 games. But in the first 4 games of the year, they did cash the over in all 4 games. They're still averaging 44 points per game this year. South Carolina and Kentucky defense is better, I would say, than LSU's defense. I know there's a lot of competition there, a lot of debate to be had there. I think South Carolina and Kentucky's defenses are definitely better than LSU's defenses. So it kind of makes sense why Ole Miss offense a little bit down in those games. Ole Miss had a really cupcake schedule to start the year. You got a lot of easy games. I think they got a little shell shock there with Kentucky and South Carolina. And again, I don't know. South Carolina, they scored 27 points. They won 27-3. More about the Kentucky game. I think they were a little shell shocked. They weren't ready to take on a team that aggressive like Kentucky, especially after their kind of weak start to the year with some of these opponents. But I think Ole Miss rolls here. This should be a blowout. I don't want to get too carried away here, but I know the spread's only 3 points, but I want to say blowout. I think Ole Miss should roll here. Over 32.5 points to me seems like a real good. But 3 games this year, they scored 40 or more points. And actually, 4 games this year, getting a little carried away. 4 games this year, they scored 40 or more points. 3 games this year, they scored 52 or more points. I could see a massive scoring explosion here for Ole Miss. So I love the team total over here. I love Ole Miss -3 on the spread. All right, guys, I have 3 picks left in this week's slate. Our next pick from the game of the week, the most exciting game this week. I cannot wait for this one. We have Ohio State at Oregon, 7:30 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. I'm rolling with the Ducks here, +3.5. We're going to get for -120 on FanDuel here. I got to be honest, this was a really tough decision to make. These are 2 really good teams, really even. I think it will be a pretty close game, which is why I kind of am leaning on taking Oregon with the points here at +3.5. I just think this is going to be a really tight game. I think Oregon obviously has the potential to win this game outright, but I'm going to play it safe here, taking with the points here at +3.5. Honestly, I just don't trust Will Howard and this Ohio State offense completely. Now, Ohio State's running game, they should absolutely have their day. This Oregon defense is not bad. 24th nation rushing yards allowed, and Ohio State's offense 16th in the nation in rushing yards. So it's not like it's a crazy insane matchup. But I do think that Ohio State has the run power to go ahead and maybe give this Oregon run defense some trouble, which I think is more their weakness. This is a really good Oregon passing defense. This Oregon secondary is lethal, and that's why I think Will Howard could struggle against this Oregon secondary. I'm just not sure how to feel about that. I know Oregon's offense, for the pieces they haven't been as explosive as you'd like to see. And obviously, Ohio State, we see their defensive numbers across the board. Some of the best in the nation, top 5 in a lot of key categories. That being said, Ohio State, look at who they've gone up against. Iowa, Michigan State, Marshall, and then a couple of real low bottom feeders there. They haven't really played a good offense yet this season. I guess Iowa is probably the best offense they've played, which is saying something. I mean, Iowa, their offense is better this year than it has in past years, but they haven't really been tested, and I think that this is obviously the best offense they've played so far this year. We'll see how good this Ohio State defense really is. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I think this game's going to be really close, a really hard-fought battle, and in this close game, I just rather take that line at +3.5 with Oregon than take it at -3.5 or -3 with Ohio State. Oregon could go ahead and win this game outright. I think it's a coin flip as to who wins this game, and if it's a coin flip, give me the underdog team with the points there at +3.5. I like Oregon a lot in this one. All right, guys, finishing up here with our final game. I have 2 picks coming from this final game on Saturday. We have Kansas State at Colorado, 10:15 p.m. kickoff. I'm going Kansas State here, -3. Look, I'll admit I've been wrong on Colorado each of the last 2 times I bet against them. I had UCF and I had Baylor in both times. Colorado stunned me, so call me a hater. I'm actually a huge Deion Sanders fan. I would not consider myself a hater, but I just don't think there's a spot for Colorado. Now, this game is a little more intriguing than it was maybe a month ago. Are they coming off the Nebraska loss? I think everybody would agree Kansas State should have rolled this team. But between Kansas State's shortcomings, that BYU loss still kind of sticking in the brain there. and Colorado's 3-game winning streak with wins over Colorado State, Baylor, and UCF. This game's a lot closer, and the line movement shows that, right? Kansas State, as early as this, if we can go ahead and see it here, I mean, as early as this week, you go ahead and look. I mean, this line was definitely a lot higher. On October 6th, this line was Kansas State -6. This line opened at like 6.5 earlier in the year, -6, and now it's at -3.5, -3, depending where you're getting it. So, I mean, it's really jumped. I think the public is all over Colorado here. I'm going to go ahead and fade the public here. I just have too many question marks with Colorado, and again, their winning streak, some nice wins there. Again, how good are Baylor and how good is UCF? Some real question marks with those two teams in the following weeks after those Colorado games. I don't know. Obviously, Baylor losing to BYU pretty badly. You had UCF last week versus Florida, kind of an ugly game. How good are those teams are kind of the questions I have. And Kansas State, look, they have their own questions in their own right? I mean, they had that BYU loss, really embarrassing. They did bounce back with a big win against Oklahoma State. I just feel more comfortable taking the side here of Kansas State at -3. I think they are the overall, not by much, but I do think they are the better team here. And these are both pretty bad defenses, which is why I like the over in this one. 55.5, -110 on Caesars, Bet365. It's varying odds across multiple sports books here. But I really do like the over here in this matchup. These are two offenses that are pretty solid. You see Colorado scoring offense tied for 56, but obviously we know Shedeur Sanders, one of the best passing quarterbacks in the nation right now. This team is top 10 in passing yards. They can't run the ball for a lick. But that's fine because Kansas State has a top 20 run defense. That's the problem here, is that Kansas State's strength on defense is their run defense. The problem is Colorado does not run the football. Their weakness for Kansas State is that secondary. They're not tied. They're actually 101st in the nation in passing yards allowed, 244.2 passing yards allowed per game. And this Colorado passing attack, again, top 10 in the nation, 326 yards per game. So it doesn't matter that Kansas State stops the run. It doesn't matter at all because Colorado doesn't run the football anyways. So their strength is Kansas State's weakness. And on the flip side, it's the exact kind of same story. Kansas State has a top 10 rushing offense in college football. They're running for over 250 yards per game this season. Colorado run defense tied for 80th in the nation, 156 rushing yards allowed per game. So you have a really bad run defense against a really good rushing offense. Both these teams, their offensive strength is a really good matchup against the opposing team's weakness in defense. So, with that being said, I could see a lot of points being scored in this game. I love the over here at 55.5. I think Kansas State wins and covers. I think a lot of points are scored here in what's going to be, I think, a very big shootout here and a really nice late night battle on Saturday. So, guys, that does it for me today. Thank you very much, as always, for watching. One more time, guys, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. Apologies one more time. Being sick, my voice seems a little weird, a little raspy. If my energy seems low at times, if I sound nasally, apologies for that. I am sick. Hopefully by next week, we'll be 100% back to normal and good to go. But the show must go on. I think we have a really solid slate ahead of us, guys. A lot of great picks, a lot of great value on these picks. So go ahead and make sure to hop in the comments, whether you're hating, whether you're loving, whether you're riding, whether you're fading, whatever the case may be. Sound off on what you think of the picks. Which ones you like, which ones you don't like, if you like any of them, if you don't like any of them, whatever the case may be, go ahead and join the comments down below. Love to see that conversation. Even though sometimes it's negative and a little shot to the heart, I don't mind it either way. We'll be back next week with some more college football picks, but until then, guys, I hope you're all winners. Enjoy Week 7 college football. We'll see you right back here next week.